There was a time when friendship meant something sacred, when the bond between women who called each other sisters was considered unbreakable, and when certain lines were understood to be uncrossable no matter the circumstances. But what happened to Jennifer Davis on Steve Harvey's show would prove that sometimes the deepest wounds come from the people we trust most completely. When this 49-year-old woman discovered that her husband of 22 years had been having an affair with the woman she considered her closest friend, the woman who had been maid of honor at her wedding and godmother to her children, it shattered every assumption she had about loyalty and trust. Steve Harvey's reaction to her story was so powerful, so unflinching in its condemnation of both betrayals, that it became one of the most talked about segments in the show's history. What happened next showed America that some betrayals cut so deep they redefine everything we thought we knew about the people in our lives. If you believe in real talk about friendship, marriage, and what happens when both are destroyed by the same act of betrayal, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. What you are about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about forgiveness, loyalty, and the limits of what love can survive. Jennifer Davis was 49 years old, a successful real estate agent in Charlotte, North Carolina, and a devoted mother to 3 children ranging in age from 15 to 20. She had been married to her husband Robert for 22 years, and for most of that time, she had considered herself blessed with a strong marriage, healthy children, and a close-knit circle of friends who felt more like family. At the center of that circle was her best friend of 25 years, Amanda Cole. Jennifer had grown up in a working-class neighborhood in Charlotte, the daughter of a postal worker and a school cafeteria manager. Her parents had instilled in her the importance of loyalty, hard work, and surrounding yourself with good people who shared your values. When Jennifer met Amanda during their first year of college at the University of North Carolina, they had bonded instantly over their shared backgrounds, their ambitions to build better lives than their parents had known, and their deep belief in the importance of female friendship. For 25 years, Jennifer and Amanda had been inseparable. They had studied together through college, supported each other through early career struggles, celebrated each other's weddings, and navigated the challenges of motherhood side by side. Amanda had been Jennifer's maid of honor when she married Robert. Jennifer had held Amanda's hand through her divorce 10 years ago when Amanda's husband left her for a younger woman. They spoke on the phone daily, sometimes multiple times per day. They took annual beach trips together with their children. They were godmothers to each other's kids. They had shared everything from recipes to relationship problems to financial struggles. Robert Davis had seemed like the perfect husband for most of their marriage. He worked as a commercial construction manager, providing a solid income that allowed Jennifer to build her real estate career without financial pressure. He was involved with their children, coached their son's baseball team, attended their daughter's dance recitals, and seemed committed to their family. He and Amanda got along well, which Jennifer had always appreciated, never imagining that their comfort with each other would become the foundation of her worst nightmare. The cracks in Jennifer's perfect life began appearing about 18 months before her appearance on Steve Harvey's show, though she did not recognize them as cracks at the time. Robert became increasingly distant, claiming work stress was overwhelming him. He started working later hours, traveling more frequently for projects, and seemed perpetually distracted when he was home. Jennifer tried to be understanding and supportive, taking on more of the household responsibilities and giving him space to deal with what she assumed was temporary work pressure. Around the same time, Amanda also seemed to pull back slightly from their friendship. She was less available for their usual coffee dates, more vague about her schedule, and occasionally canceled plans at the last minute. When Jennifer expressed concern, Amanda assured her that everything was fine, that she was just dealing with some personal issues she was not ready to talk about yet. Jennifer, respecting her friend's privacy and trusting their decades-long bond, did not push for details. Looking back, Jennifer could see all the signs she had missed or dismissed. The way Robert and Amanda would exchange glances at family gatherings that lasted just a beat too long. The way Amanda always seemed to know details about Robert's work schedule that Jennifer herself did not know. The way Robert's mood improved noticeably when Amanda was around. The way Amanda started dressing differently, wearing styles and colors that Robert had always said he found attractive. But in the moment, Jennifer had trusted them both so completely that these observations never coalesced into suspicion. The truth revealed itself in the most devastating way possible. Jennifer came home early from a real estate showing that had been canceled at the last minute. She walked into her own home, the home she and Robert had saved for years to buy, the home where they had raised their children, and found her husband and her best friend together in her bedroom. There was no ambiguity, no possibility of misunderstanding. They were in her bed, in her home, betraying her in the most intimate way possible. The image of that moment would be seared into Jennifer's memory forever. The shock on their faces when they saw her, the scramble to cover themselves, the immediate rush of excuses and explanations that tumbled out of their mouths, words that Jennifer could barely process through the roaring in her ears. She stood there for what felt like an eternity, but was probably only seconds before she turned and walked out of her own bedroom, down the stairs, out the front door, and got into her car. Jennifer drove without any destination in mind, her hands shaking so badly she had to pull over twice to avoid causing an accident. She ended up at a park where she had taken her children when they were young, sitting on a bench as the sun set, trying to understand how her entire life had just imploded in the space of a single moment. Her husband, her best friend, together, in her bed. How long had this been happening? How many times had they lied to her face? How many conversations had she had with each of them about the other while they were secretly betraying her together? When Jennifer finally returned home hours later, Robert was waiting for her, desperate and apologetic. He tried to explain, to minimize, to promise it would never happen again. But his words washed over Jennifer like noise without meaning. She moved through the house like a ghost, gathering essentials and going to stay at a hotel, unable to process the magnitude of what she had discovered. The next morning, Amanda called her phone repeatedly. Jennifer finally answered, and Amanda's immediate rush of apologies and explanations felt almost worse than the discovery itself. Amanda claimed she had never meant for it to happen, that she and Robert had developed feelings for each other gradually over the past year, that she had been tormented by guilt, but had not known how to stop. She said she still valued Jennifer's friendship and hoped they could eventually work through this. Jennifer listened to her supposed best friend attempt to justify the ultimate betrayal and realized that she had never truly known either of these people. The man she had been married to for 22 years and the woman she had considered closer than a sister had both been capable of this level of deception and selfishness. They had looked into her eyes every single day while carrying on their affair. They had sat at her dinner table, celebrated holidays with her children, and pretended to care about her well-being while actively destroying her life. The weeks that followed were the darkest of Jennifer's existence. She filed for divorce immediately, but the legal process was slow and painful. She had to tell her children that their father had had an affair, though she could not bring herself to tell them with whom. She had to face friends and family, dealing with their shock and sympathy, while trying to maintain some semblance of dignity. She had to continue working, showing houses and negotiating deals while her personal life was in ruins. But the hardest part was the isolation. Jennifer had built her entire adult social life around Amanda. Most of Jennifer's friends were friends she had made through Amanda or friends they shared. When the affair became public knowledge, Jennifer lost not just her husband and her best friend, but also much of her social circle. Some people took sides, some people did not want to get involved, and some people simply did not know how to navigate the awkwardness of the situation. Jennifer also had to cope with the specific pain of this particular betrayal. If Robert had cheated with a stranger, a co-worker, even an acquaintance, it would have been devastating. But he had chosen the one person whose betrayal hurt almost as much as his own. He had chosen the woman who knew every vulnerable detail of Jennifer's life, every insecurity, every fear. He had chosen the woman Jennifer had trusted with her deepest secrets and her children's well-being. and Amanda had chosen to betray a friendship that had defined a quarter-century of her life. In the months following the discovery, Jennifer struggled to make sense of what had happened. She replayed every interaction from the past year in her mind, seeing everything through the new lens of betrayal. That time Amanda had encouraged her to take that weekend trip to visit her sister, assuring her that she would check in on Robert while Jennifer was gone. Had they used that time to be together? That evening when Robert claimed he was working late, but Amanda had also been unreachable. Had they been together then? The lunch where Amanda had asked detailed questions about Jennifer's marriage, claiming she was just concerned that Jennifer seemed stressed. Had Amanda been mining for information to use in her relationship with Robert? The gaslighting felt endless. Jennifer had been manipulated by the two people she trusted most, and now she questioned every memory, every interaction, every moment of the past year or longer. How long had the affair actually been going on? Robert claimed it had only been a few months, but Jennifer no longer believed anything he said. Amanda had initially claimed the same timeline, but details in their stories did not quite match, suggesting the truth was probably much worse than either admitted. Jennifer's children were devastated, particularly when they eventually learned that the other woman was Aunt Amanda, the woman they had known their entire lives, the woman who had bought them birthday presents and attended their school events and been a fixture at every family gathering. Her oldest daughter, Emily, who was 20, stopped speaking to her father entirely. Her son Jacob, 17, became angry and withdrawn, his grades dropping as he struggled to process his father's betrayal of the family. Her youngest, Sophia, only 15, cried herself to sleep night after night, unable to understand why the adults she trusted had destroyed their family. Jennifer tried to be strong for her children, but privately she was falling apart. She had trouble sleeping, often lying awake until 3 or 4 in the morning, her mind racing through the same painful thoughts. She lost 20 pounds in 2 months, food tasting like ash in her mouth. She made mistakes at work, forgetting appointments and mixing up client details, her normally sharp focus shattered by emotional devastation. Her sister Rachel, who lived 3 hours away in Raleigh, became her lifeline during this period. Rachel drove to Charlotte every weekend to check on Jennifer and help with the children. It was Rachel who insisted that Jennifer see a therapist to process the trauma of the double betrayal. It was Rachel who helped Jennifer understand that what she was experiencing was not just heartbreak but a profound grief for the death of 2 relationships she had believed were unshakable foundations of her life. The therapist helped Jennifer recognize that she was dealing with compounded trauma. The betrayal by a spouse was devastating enough, but the simultaneous betrayal by a best friend created a unique kind of pain. Jennifer had lost her partner and her primary emotional support system at the same moment, leaving her with nowhere to turn to process the loss of either. The therapist also helped Jennifer see that she had been psychologically abused by both Robert and Amanda, who had gaslighted her for months or possibly years, making her doubt her own perceptions while they lied directly to her face. As the divorce proceedings dragged on, new revelations kept emerging that made everything worse. Robert and Amanda were not just having an affair. They were planning a future together. They had been looking at apartments together. They had discussed which of their children might eventually live with them and which would stay with their other parents. They had been building a life together in secret while Jennifer paid the bills, raised the children, and worked to support the household, completely unaware that her entire reality was a lie. The financial aspects of the divorce added another layer of pain. Robert wanted to split their assets 50-50, despite being the one who had destroyed the marriage. He wanted shared custody of the children, despite having betrayed them all. He seemed to believe that he deserved to walk away from the wreckage of their family with half of everything they had built together, as though his actions should have no consequences. Meanwhile, Amanda continued to try to contact Jennifer, sending long emails explaining her perspective, asking for forgiveness, claiming that she never meant to hurt Jennifer but had fallen in love with Robert and could not help herself. The emails were self-serving and infuriating, full of excuses and attempts to minimize her role in the destruction of Jennifer's life. Amanda seemed to genuinely believe that she and Jennifer could eventually be friends again, that Jennifer would eventually understand and accept this new reality. Jennifer's anger, which had initially been diffuse and paralyzing, began to crystallize into something more focused. She was angry at Robert for his betrayal, but she was perhaps even angrier at Amanda. Robert had broken their marriage vows, which was unforgivable. But Amanda had broken something Jennifer believed was even more sacred. She had violated the trust of a 25-year friendship. She had betrayed the woman who had supported her through her own divorce, who had been there for every crisis and celebration of her adult life, who had opened her home and her family to her. 6 months after discovering the affair, Jennifer still had not told most people the full truth about who Robert had cheated with. She had told her sister, her therapist, and her lawyer, but she had not told their mutual friends or most of her family. She felt ashamed, though she logically knew she had nothing to be ashamed of. She worried about how people would react, whether they would blame her somehow, whether they would say she should have seen the signs. Jennifer's sister Rachel, worried about her ongoing isolation and depression, suggested they take a trip together. Rachel had secured tickets to a taping of Steve Harvey's show in Atlanta, just a few hours from Charlotte. Jennifer initially refused, feeling unable to put on a happy face in public. But Rachel persisted, arguing that Jennifer needed to get out of Charlotte, to be around people, to remember that there was a world beyond her pain. Reluctantly, Jennifer agreed. The morning of the show, she dressed carefully in a blue dress that had always been one of her favorites, though it now hung loosely on her thinner frame. She applied makeup to hide the dark circles under her eyes and the pallor of her skin. She smiled for Rachel's sake, pretending to have some enthusiasm for the outing, when really she felt hollow and exhausted. As they drove to Atlanta, Rachel gently suggested that if an opportunity arose during the show to talk about what Jennifer was going through, she should take it. Jennifer laughed bitterly at the suggestion, unable to imagine sharing her humiliation with strangers. But Rachel pushed back softly, reminding Jennifer that keeping everything inside was not protecting her, but destroying her, that maybe speaking the truth out loud to people who had no investment in the situation would be freeing in a way that talking to friends and family was not. Jennifer did not commit to anything, but she thought about Rachel's words as they found their seats in the studio. She had been carrying the full weight of this betrayal alone for 6 months, protecting Robert and Amanda's reputations even as they destroyed her life, and she was tired. She was so profoundly tired of holding everything together, of being strong, of pretending she was coping when she was barely surviving each day. The Steve Harvey show was bright and energetic, a stark contrast to Jennifer's internal emotional state. She sat next to Rachel, trying to focus on the show, trying to laugh at the jokes, trying to be present. Then Steve announced a segment about betrayal in relationships, and Jennifer felt her sister squeeze her hand. Steve's voice took on a more serious tone as he spoke about infidelity and the particular pain of being betrayed by multiple people at once. Sometimes, he said, the affair itself is not the only betrayal. Sometimes the person your partner chooses to cheat with is someone close to you, someone you trusted, someone who had their own relationship with you that they violated. And that double betrayal creates a unique kind of pain that most people cannot even imagine unless they have lived through it. Jennifer felt tears prick her eyes as Steve continued. I know there are people in this audience right now who are dealing with this exact situation, who discovered that their partner cheated with a friend, a family member, someone who should have been off limits, and I want to talk to one of those people right now. When the production assistant approached Jennifer's row and asked if she would be willing to talk to Steve, Jennifer looked at Rachel, who nodded encouragingly, and before Jennifer could think too much about it, before she could talk herself out of it, she stood and made her way to the stage. Steve Harvey met her with warmth and genuine concern in his eyes. What's your name, sweetheart? He asked. Jennifer, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jennifer Davis. Jennifer, tell me what happened, Steve said, and something about his direct, compassionate approach made it possible for Jennifer to speak the truth she had been holding inside for 6 months. And so she told her story. She talked about discovering her husband and her best friend of 25 years in her bed, about the years of lies and manipulation, about losing not just her marriage but also her closest friendship and much of her social circle, about her children's devastation when they learned who the other woman was, about Amanda's attempts to justify the affair and maintain contact, about feeling utterly alone in her pain. As Jennifer spoke, tears rolled down her face, but her voice grew stronger. This was the first time she had told the complete truth to people who had no connection to either Robert or Amanda, people who had no reason to make excuses or minimize what had happened. When she finished, the studio was absolutely silent. Steve Harvey stood looking at Jennifer with an expression of such profound anger on her behalf that it was almost startling. When he finally spoke, his voice was tight with controlled fury. "Jennifer," Steve began, "I have heard a lot of stories on this show. I have heard about infidelity, about lies, about betrayal. But what you just described is on another level entirely. Your husband did not just cheat on you. He chose to cheat with the one person whose betrayal would hurt you the most. And your so-called best friend did not just betray your friendship. She participated in the destruction of your marriage and your family. Both of them knew exactly what they were doing and exactly how much it would hurt you. And they did it anyway." Steve's voice rose with intensity. "Let me tell you something about people who claim they could not help themselves, who say they fell in love and could not control it. That is a lie. That is a cowardly excuse for selfish behavior. Your friend had 25 years to fall in love with your husband. She chose to do it while you were married to him. That was not an accident. That was not something that just happened to her. She made a choice. She made hundreds of choices. Every time she talked to you on the phone while carrying on with your husband, that was a choice. Every time she came to your house and ate at your table and played with your children while sleeping with their father, that was a choice. Every time she gave you advice about your marriage while actively destroying it, that was a choice." The audience murmured in agreement, and Steve turned to face them before looking back at Jennifer. "And your husband. This man who vowed to honor you, to be faithful to you, to build a life with you. He chose to violate every one of those vows with the woman he knew you trusted most in the world. He did not pick a random woman. He did not have a one-night stand with a stranger. He chose your best friend. He chose the woman who was godmother to his children. He chose the woman who had been part of your lives for 2.5 decades. That tells you exactly how much respect he had for you, for your marriage, and for your family." Steve's voice softened slightly but lost none of its intensity. "You know what makes me angriest about your story? Both of these people are trying to make you accept what they did. Your husband wants you to just move forward with the divorce and split everything 50-50 like he did nothing wrong. Your friend keeps contacting you asking for forgiveness and understanding like she deserves either one. They both want you to make this easy for them, to minimize their actions, to help them feel better about what they did. And that is disgustingly selfish." Steve paused, letting his words sink in. "Here is what I want you to understand, Jennifer. You do not owe either of these people anything. You do not owe your husband an amicable divorce. You do not owe your friend forgiveness or understanding or eventual friendship. You do not owe them the protection of keeping their secret or minimizing what they did. They destroyed your trust, your marriage, your friendship, and your sense of safety in your own life. You owe them nothing." He continued with growing passion. "This woman Amanda had the audacity to tell you she values your friendship and hopes you can work through this. Are you kidding me? She does not value your friendship. You cannot value something you destroy. She values what you gave her. She values having access to your life, your support, your trust. But she does not value you as a person, because if she did, she never could have done what she did." Steve turned to address the audience again. "Ladies and gentlemen, I need you to understand something. There are levels of betrayal. All cheating is wrong, but some situations are worse than others. When someone cheats with your friend or family member, that is not just about the physical or emotional affair. That is a calculated violation of multiple relationships. It shows a level of disrespect and selfishness that goes beyond ordinary infidelity. Looking back at Jennifer, Steve's expression was filled with compassion mixed with righteous anger on her behalf. You said you have been protecting them by not telling people the full truth. You said you felt ashamed. Jennifer, why are you protecting them? They did not protect you. They did not protect your children. They did not protect your marriage or your friendship. They were thinking only of themselves every single day for months or years. Why are you still putting their comfort ahead of your own healing? Jennifer started to respond, but Steve held up his hand gently. I know why. Because you are a good person who keeps her commitments and honors her relationships, even when the other people involved do not deserve it. But Jennifer, keeping their secret is not protecting you. It is protecting them from the consequences of their actions. And they need to face those consequences. Steve's voice grew even more intense. Here is what I think you should do, and I know this is going to sound harsh, but you need to hear it. Stop protecting these people. Tell your mutual friends the truth about who Robert cheated with. Let Amanda face the consequences of her actions in her own social circle. Let Robert's family and your children know exactly who he chose to destroy your marriage for. Stop carrying the shame that belongs to them. He continued before Jennifer could interrupt. I am not saying this because I want you to be vindictive or cruel. I am saying this because you deserve to have support from people who care about you, and you cannot get that support while you are hiding the full truth. I am saying this because Amanda and Robert need to understand that their actions have consequences. I am saying this because you need to stop protecting the people who hurt you and start protecting yourself. Steve's next words were quieter but no less powerful. You also need to completely cut both of these people out of your life. Block Amanda's number and email. Do not read her messages. Do not engage with her attempts to explain or justify or ask for forgiveness. She does not deserve your forgiveness. She does not deserve your time or your emotional energy. She deserves nothing from you except permanent absence from your life. The audience applauded, and Steve raised his voice to be heard over them. And your husband. Jennifer, fight him on every single aspect of this divorce. He does not deserve half of everything you built together. He does not deserve easy access to his children. He does not deserve your cooperation or understanding. Get the most aggressive divorce attorney you can find and make him face every single consequence of his actions. Steve looked directly into Jennifer's eyes. I know what you are thinking right now. You are thinking that this sounds bitter and angry and not like the person you want to be. But Jennifer, there is a difference between being bitter and refusing to be a doormat. There is a difference between being angry and standing up for yourself. These people took advantage of your kindness, your trust, and your loyalty. Do not let them continue to take advantage of you by making you feel guilty for protecting yourself now. His final words on the topic rang through the studio. You lost your husband and your best friend in one moment, and that is devastating. But you know what? They were not worth having. A husband who could do what Robert did was never really your partner. A friend who could do what Amanda did was never really your friend. You did not lose them. You discovered who they really were, and now you have the opportunity to build a life surrounded by people who actually deserve you. Steve's voice softened one final time. So here is my advice, and I want you to really hear me. Stop protecting them. Tell the truth to everyone who needs to know it. Cut them completely out of your life. Fight for everything you deserve in this divorce. And most importantly, stop blaming yourself or questioning what you could have done differently. You trusted your husband and your best friend. That is what you are supposed to do in a marriage and a friendship. You did nothing wrong. They did everything wrong. Remember that. The audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation. Jennifer stood on that stage, tears streaming down her face, but something fundamental had shifted inside her. Steve had given her permission to stop being nice, to stop protecting people who did not deserve protection, to stop carrying shame that belonged entirely to Robert and Amanda. For the first time in 6 months, Jennifer felt something other than grief and confusion. She felt clarity. She felt anger that was focused and purposeful rather than paralyzing. She felt ready to fight for herself. When Jennifer returned to her seat, Rachel was crying too. Mom would be so proud of you right now. Rachel whispered, referring to their mother who had passed away 5 years earlier. She always said you were too nice for your own good, that you let people take advantage of you. I am so glad you finally heard what you needed to hear. On the drive back to Charlotte, Jennifer was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet than the numb silence of the past months. She was thinking, planning, preparing for the changes she needed to make. When they arrived back at Jennifer's house, she turned to Rachel and said something that surprised them both. I am going to tell everyone the truth. Tomorrow, I am going to send an email to all our mutual friends explaining exactly why Robert and I are divorcing and exactly who he had the affair with. I am done protecting them. Rachel squeezed her sister's hand. Good. It is about time. That night, Jennifer composed an email to approximately 40 people in their extended social circle, mutual friends who had known both couples for years. The email was direct, factual, and unemotional. She explained that she was divorcing Robert because he had been having an affair with Amanda Cole for at least several months and possibly much longer. She explained that she had discovered them together in her home. She explained that she was sharing this information not to be vindictive, but because she needed support from people who knew the full truth, and because she was done protecting people who had not protected her. The responses to that email came flooding in within hours. Friends who had known both couples were shocked and angry on Jennifer's behalf. Several women reached out to share that they had never trusted Amanda, that something had always seemed off about her, that they were not surprised. Others offered support and solidarity, sharing their own stories of betrayal and how they had survived. A few people who had been friendly with Amanda chose to cut Jennifer off entirely, which hurt but also clarified who her real friends were. Jennifer also followed Steve's advice about the divorce. She fired her collaborative divorce attorney and hired one of the most aggressive family law attorneys in Charlotte. At her new lawyer's urging, she stopped being accommodating about custody schedules and asset division. She fought for the house, arguing that Robert's affair had destabilized their children and they needed the security of remaining in their family home. She fought for a larger share of their retirement accounts, arguing that she had sacrificed career advancement to support Robert's career and raise their children. She fought for everything she deserved. Robert was shocked and angry at Jennifer's change in approach. He had expected her to continue being accommodating and reasonable. He tried to contact her directly to ask why she was being so difficult, but Jennifer had blocked his number except for a co-parenting app that they used for necessary communication about their children. When he showed up at her house unannounced to talk, she called the police and had them remove him from her property. She was done making things easy for him. Amanda also tried repeatedly to contact Jennifer after the email went out to their mutual friends. She sent messages claiming that Jennifer had humiliated her publicly, that what happened between her and Robert was private and not something to be shared with the world, that Jennifer was being cruel and vindictive. Jennifer blocked every method of communication and never responded to a single message. 1 month after her appearance on Steve Harvey's show, the producers reached out to Jennifer about doing a follow-up segment. She agreed, wanting to share how Steve's advice had changed her approach to the situation. When Jennifer walked onto Steve's stage for the second time, she looked different. She had gained back some of the weight she had lost and looked healthier. Her eyes were clearer. She stood straighter. There was a strength in her demeanor that had not been there before. Steve greeted her warmly. "Jennifer Davis! Tell America what has been happening." Jennifer took the microphone and spoke with confidence. 1 month ago, I stood on this stage and told you about discovering my husband's affair with my best friend of 25 years. I told you about the pain and isolation I was feeling. And Steve gave me advice that changed everything. He told me to stop protecting people who did not protect me. He told me to tell the truth to everyone who needed to know it. He told me to fight for myself in my divorce instead of trying to be nice and accommodating, and I took his advice. She continued, her voice growing stronger. I sent an email to all our mutual friends explaining exactly why we were divorcing and who Robert had the affair with. I stopped responding to Amanda's attempts to contact me. I hired an aggressive divorce attorney and started fighting for what I deserve. And you know what? It felt amazing. For the first time in 6 months, I felt like I had some power in the situation instead of just being a victim of what they did to me." The audience applauded, and Steve smiled with obvious satisfaction. "That is what I want to hear. You stopped letting them control the narrative. You stopped protecting them from the consequences of their actions." "How did people respond when you told the truth?" "Most people were incredibly supportive." Jennifer said, "A lot of our mutual friends said they had never trusted Amanda and were not surprised. Some people shared their own stories of betrayal and how they survived. A few people sided with Amanda or just did not want to get involved, and honestly, that showed me who my real friends are." Steve nodded approvingly. "That is exactly right. When you tell the truth, people's reactions tell you everything you need to know about them. The people who support you are worth keeping in your life. The people who make excuses for your betrayers or blame you for speaking up are showing you who they really are." "I also want to say something," Jennifer added, looking directly into the camera. "To anyone watching who is going through something similar, who discovered that someone they love cheated with someone else they love, you need to hear this. It is not your fault. You did not cause this by trusting the wrong people. They caused it by being untrustworthy, and you deserve to protect yourself, to tell the truth, and to fight for what is yours." Over the next year, Jennifer's transformation continued. The divorce was finalized with Jennifer receiving the house, 60% of their retirement assets, and primary custody of their youngest child, who was still a minor. Robert's relationship with their older children remained strained, particularly after they learned the full truth about who he had cheated with. Robert and Amanda continued their relationship for about 8 months after the affair became public, but it eventually fell apart under the weight of social ostracism and their own guilt. Mutual friends who had sided with Jennifer refused to socialize with them. Amanda's own children, who had grown up with Jennifer's children and considered Jennifer an aunt, were horrified by what their mother had done. The relationship that had seemed worth destroying 2 families did not survive the reality of its own foundation of lies and betrayal. Jennifer heard about their breakup through mutual acquaintances, but felt nothing. She had meant what she said about cutting them both completely out of her life. Whether they were together or apart was irrelevant to her healing and her future. 2 years after discovering the affair, Jennifer had rebuilt her life entirely. She had developed a close circle of genuine friends, women she had met through a betrayal support group and through her work in real estate. She had reconnected with old college friends she had lost touch with during her years of friendship with Amanda. She had focused on her relationship with her children, helping them process their own feelings about their father's betrayal and modeling for them what healthy boundaries looked like. She had also thrown herself into her real estate career with renewed energy and focus. Without the emotional drain of a failing marriage and a toxic friendship, she found she had more energy and clarity than she had felt in years. Her business grew significantly, and she became one of the top agents in her market. Jennifer started speaking at support groups for people dealing with infidelity, particularly focusing on cases where the affair partner was someone close to the betrayed spouse. She shared her story and the advice Steve Harvey had given her about protecting yourself instead of protecting your betrayers. Many people told her that her willingness to be honest about the double betrayal helped them feel less alone in their own pain. 3 years after her first appearance on Steve Harvey's show, Jennifer was invited back for a final update. By then, she had started dating again and had met someone new, a divorced father of 2 who understood the pain of betrayal and treated her with the respect and honesty she deserved. She brought him with her to the show. Steve looked at Jennifer with obvious pride. "Look at you. 3 years ago, you were barely holding yourself together. Today, you are thriving. Tell me how you did it." Jennifer smiled. "I stopped being afraid of other people's reactions and started prioritizing my own healing. I stopped protecting people who hurt me and started protecting myself. I built a life surrounded by people who actually deserve to be in it. And I learned that the end of a marriage and a friendship that were built on lies was not the end of my story. It was the beginning of a better one. Steve turned to the audience. This is what I want everyone to understand. When someone betrays you, particularly when multiple people betray you at once, you have choices. You can minimize what happened and try to move on quickly. You can protect your betrayers from consequences. You can blame yourself and question what you did wrong. Or you can do what Jennifer did. You can tell the truth. You can fight for yourself. You can cut toxic people completely out of your life. You can build something better. Jennifer's story became one of the most shared and discussed segments in Steve Harvey's show history. It resonated with thousands of people who had experienced similar double betrayals. The segment was used in therapy sessions, support groups, and divorce recovery programs as an example of healthy boundary setting and self-protection after betrayal. But for Jennifer, the most important impact was personal. She had reclaimed her life, her dignity, and her sense of self-worth. She had learned that she was strong enough to survive her worst fear coming true. She had proven to herself that she could build a life without the people she thought she needed most. 5 years after discovering Robert and Amanda together, Jennifer was genuinely happy. She had a thriving career, healthy relationships with her children, genuine friendships with trustworthy people, and a new romantic relationship built on honesty and mutual respect. She rarely thought about Robert or Amanda anymore. They had become footnotes in her story rather than the main characters. On the 5th anniversary of that terrible discovery, Jennifer thought about the woman she had been that day. The woman who had trusted completely and been betrayed utterly. The woman who had felt her world end in a single moment. That woman had been devastated, but she had also been stronger than she knew. Jennifer had learned that trust is a gift you give to people who prove themselves worthy of it, not a baseline you extend to everyone regardless of their actions. She had learned that protecting yourself is not the same as being bitter. She had learned that some betrayals are too deep to forgive, and that is okay. She had learned that the end of something painful can be the beginning of something better. If Jennifer's story resonates with you, if you or someone you know has experienced the double betrayal of infidelity and friendship violation, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story with someone who might need to hear it. Because sometimes the most important thing we can learn is that we deserve people in our lives who honor our trust, and we have every right to remove people who violate it, no matter how long they have been part of our story. Jennifer Davis proved that it is never too late to choose yourself, never too late to tell the truth, and never too late to build a life surrounded by people who actually deserve to be in it.